Hi, and welcome to the SBOM live webinars. After a short period of no recordings, we're happy to be back now in 2026. I'm Olle Johansson in Udvina, Sweden, one of the co-founders of SBOM Europe, and together with me I have Anthony Harrison. Who are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm Anthony from the UK. I do lots of work with SBOMs, got lots of tools, lots of consulting, active time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have regular meetings, stand-ups in SBOM Europe to discuss our trainings and projects and speaking at conferences and all the crazy thing we do about SBOMs. And one of the questions we started discussing the other day is what is really required by the CRA, the European Cyber Resilience Act, that turned 1 year last December in 2025. And we figured out that the answer to this question isn't as easy as people may think. It's not just any SBOM, and it also varies in regards to products. But when discussing types of SBOMs, people usually start with this picture. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So, a few years ago, people started realizing that an SBOM develops through the development life cycle. So, when you're following a typical secure life cycle, you start with a design process, then you may write some code, you build, compile it, eventually you get it deployed onto a platform or a device. Um, and as you go through that life cycle, you gain more information from as you make more decisions. So at the design stage, you may say, "Oh, I might be going to use a Linux platform." Not until you really get down to the deployed stage do you know exactly what version and what instance of that platform is. So depending on where you are in the life cycle, will depend on how good your SBOM is going to be. And I think we've seen quite a lot of examples of people generating SBOM, but not really clearly about where it lives in that life cycle, because where it's in the life cycle is going to determine on what use cases you can support.
And also, I mean, if you look into the build SBOM, that usually includes the build system, compilers, test tools, other things that is typically not as part of the deployment. So you have different views of the actual product or service depending on where you are in this range of SBOMs. I usually say that, well, this is all fine, but in my head, there's a missing one, the supply chain SBOM. And this is a different one. This is the one we hand across the software supply chain or hardware supply chain for that matter. Something that in some cases have to be approved by some legal department or compliance department. This is what we expose to our downstream customers. And we haven't really seen requirements or a clear definition of what type of SBOM this is and what should be in there, right?
Yeah, and I think, you could see one view is maybe the one at the end, the customer user SBOM is just it's a merging of all the previous ones that have come from upstream. But I think if you did that, you would potentially lose a lot of information, because there may be information that an upstream vendor's provided to the manufacturer. The manufacturer may not want, may replace some of the components with updated versions of a component, and
Yeah.
that might, lead to some interesting discussions.
We heard that kind of discussion many times in our Friday night meetings with SBOM Forum in OWASP, where legal people tell us that, well, we can't disclose everything that's in a product according to our contracts with upstream vendors, or disclosing the full SBOM will actually give customer a recipe to building a product, something I don't agree with. But there is some hesitation about this as well, something I think the market will overcome as we proceed and get used to software transparency across the supply chain. And of course, this is also a picture that really connects with the Transparency Exchange API that we're working with in OWASP. And that's an interesting part. But if I get an SBOM, can I actually see which of these types of the, let's say 7 types now when we added one, type of SBOM this is?
So I think, although that definition was probably more than 2 years ago, the standards, the two dominant SBOM standards, SPDX and Cyclone DX, have slightly different ways of expressing those types. So the latest version of SPDX matches the definition, exactly the same names. So you can identify your SBOM and you can add that as an attribute of your metadata. And Cyclone DX has something similar and has had for a number of iterations. What I haven't seen is very many SBOMs that I see actually including this information. Although this information is available in the standards, I'm not seeing this information being provided,
Yeah.
which is a shame because it's a really important bit of information because it gives you the context of the SBOM.
Yeah. And when speaking with tool vendors, they claim that they have an SBOM, but they're not aware of this. And I would very much like to see the different types of SBOM for the same product and be able to see the overlaps, but also the different deltas between them. So I'm really looking forward to that kind of tool. Maybe in your large range of SBOM tools, open source, you can develop something. But we also can look at this from another point of view. That is really the usage of the SBOM. And I would say the product team needs an SBOM for handling vulnerabilities. The compliance team wants to assess risks and also see software licenses and properly copyright and other things. The sysadmin that operates the systems wants to see what happens in the system, what vulnerabilities it needs to fix, what upgrades it needs to operate on. And then we have the downstream, the software supply chain, SBOM again. Is this a complete view, or are we missing something, or does this match the types of SBOMs, do you think?
Possibly. Well, I mean, there's clearly the external view as well in terms of what things like the regulators are going to want. Um, I don't think we know yet what information they really want to see. We can guess, but it may be a subset of that information that's available, or it may be some additional information that they haven't that isn't normally acquired.
No.
So these different viewpoints are potentially providing different, challenges for the manufacturers to produce multiple SBOMs of the product. Um, and I was just going back to what you said about people asking an SBOM. When people ask for an SBOM, often they say, "Well, is it about the format? It's about SPDX or Cyclone DX." As distinct from what's the content of the SBOM, and I think we do need to quite clarify exactly what we mean by the type of an SBOM because I think it's not widely understood.
No, and going back to the original question then, when we now have the landscape mapped out for us, the SCRA, the Cyber Resilience Act, clearly states that the manufacturer will need an SBOM, especially when something happens. The market authorities will ask for an SBOM. The text says the SBOM needs to cover at least top-level dependencies, which is what the market authorities need because they can figure out all the transient dependencies from that. There's no requirement in the CRA to distribute an SBOM to a user. So this is the legal text, but the question is what this really means. Well, the manufacturer will need an SBOM that can be, handed over to market authorities on request. They also say in the CRA that market authorities may request SBOMs in order to produce statistics of the global, or I would say the union market. The product team, on the other hand, will need an SBOM with the full dependency tree because they have full responsibility for all the components in the product. And the only way is to have this data, whether it's an SBOM file or an SBOM data in a big application, that's something else, a database. In many cases, the SBOM will also be required, especially when large enterprises or the public sector acquires software. It will be a natural requirement in order for them to be able to manage their IT platforms and keep them secure that they also request an SBOM. And that's the software supply chain SBOM. But the interesting thing when looking at this, saying, okay, there is an SBOM that is mandated by the CRA. And if we understand it correctly, it needs to cover the delivered product, right? Because the CRA is a product regulation about product being placed on the market and marketed. And the way I see it, I mean, if you deliver a system, a camera, webcam with an embedded Linux system and special applications you've written, you deliver a full system and you need an SBOM for that, not only your part, but also all of the embedded Linux, the firmware drivers from a third-party hardware manufacturer and other things. If you deliver a container, it's very similar. But for mobile, laptop, and server software, you don't deliver usually the operating system, but you deliver something with an installer, and the installer is also software within the delivery. So the installer also needs an SBOM in this case. And you probably bought the installer somewhere. You haven't written it yourself today. So you need that from your upstream manufacturer. But these are different types of SBOMs, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah,
embedded.
yeah. And I think they've also, there's obviously different ways of generating them. And, the big requirement is, you're meant to be able to ensure that you haven't got any exploitable vulnerabilities. Well, unless you've got the full detail of all the components within your product, then you aren't going to be able to sort of assure that. Which gets interesting about the dependencies. Top level dependencies are only what you use directly in your application. It's all these transitive dependencies which are hidden, which actually are often
Yeah.
very,
Uh,
very, potentially the weak point of many products.
oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the versions of those products, of those dependencies, are really important to understand. What, not just the name of the product, it's the versions as well.
Oh, yeah. But if you deliver with an operating system, an embedded product, or some server software in a Docker container or OSI container, I mean, you have full responsibility for everything in that product. So it's not just your application running in it, it's the whole product that you need to have an SBOM for the market authority, I guess.
And if we think more people start packaging components as containers, operating systems are not. I don't think they're critical, are they? They're the second level, aren't they, in the CRA? So
Yeah,
that provides,
important.
in terms
Yes.
of the assessment, process that you may have to go through, that is,
Yeah.
not.
If your upstream vendor hasn't gone through that, you probably need that because then you're a vendor of the operating system, and that's an interesting point.
Mm.
Especially if you build with something like Yocto or OpenWRT or something. But the first class here with operating systems seems closer to a runtime or deployed
Mhm.
SBOM. But if you deliver software only, that's closer to, I would say, the build or what type of SBOM do you think that is?
It, I think it's probably the build initially, but obviously, um, there are still unknowns when you get to that after that build stage. So if you've got dynamic libraries, those dynamic libraries aren't known at the build time. You don't know exactly which version of the build those libraries you're going to use until you actually put it onto a platform. So yeah,
No,
for,
it's interesting, and to get to a summary, I don't think it's clear which type of data and which type of SBOM that this uh, requirement points to. There has been some work by the BSI, and ENISA just published a guide, but it doesn't relate directly to the CRA like we're doing here. It's a very generic guide that's out for review from ENISA. A good one describing SBOMs and SBOM tooling and other things, but I think we need some clearer guidance here on what type of SBOMs we need for this kind of different situations and different product types. And we also need to start working in the communities here to define the supply chain SBOM. What is it that we hand over? And I think the addition you created for Cyclone DX, the traffic light protocol, is really helpful here because we can now mark certain parts of the internal SBOM that we have working with as internal only. And by doing that, we can use tools to filter out stuff when we publish something that's going outside our organization. Isn't that right?
yes, yeah, and I think you know software very rarely lives in isolation these days. So it's these, it's the bomb, X bombs, as we sometimes hear, which, the system of S bombs or hardware bill of materials or crypto bill of materials coming together. So I think when if we need to recognize that the CRA is not just covering software. So there are how you build this package together, and that's where things like T is going to be very useful. The Transparency Exchange API, I think, is going to be very, very powerful going
It's
forward.
all about enhancing software transparency to the authorities when something happens, but also across the supply chain, I would
Mhm.
say.
Yeah, but yeah,
So,
sharing S bombs um, is a challenge that I think people have yet to realise they're going to have to understand. We've got time. The COA isn't fully implemented for till the end of next year, so there's time for this to become to be understood better by everybody. And I hope we start focusing quite now closely on the information that's going to be delivered and understand why that information is required to make sure it meets the use cases for the various consumers. I think yeah, quite a lot to happen in the next year, I'm sure.
and we're going to be here, and we're looking forward to contributing to that work. Any last words before we?
No, I think we're looking forward to end of the month in FOSDEM as part of the Open Source Week. There's a whole day all about SBOMs, and there's probably a whole day about COA, probably 2 days about COA. So it will be great to meet people there and share their experiences and build more and more tools for the community to
Yep.
use.
And this summer, I just heard that Cyclone DX 2.0, which is a whole new generation of software transparency documentation, will likely be ready for implementers to start with. And hopefully we'll also have Transparency Exchange API version 1. So there's a lot of fun coming. And we'll follow up on that on another SBOM Live. Thank you for listening. We're looking forward to interacting with you and meeting you out there at conferences and various events. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.